I'm so glad you're here with me. Stay until the end of my story. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Catherine Ramsey, and I'm 65 years old, a widow. Living alone in a small apartment in Boston. Last night, I canceled a $150,000 payment for my only son's wedding. My hands were trembling as I sat in my bakery. The lights dim, the scent of vanilla and sugar still lingering in the air. Nathan, my boy, had thrown me out of his wedding ceremony because I embarrassed him in front of his fiancée's high society family. I was staring at the phone, watching the bank's confirmation pop up on the screen. Payment cancelled, just like that. My heart felt like it was caught in a vice, squeezing tighter with every breath. 32 years of love, of sacrifice, and this was how Nathan repaid me. The counter in front of me held half-finished wedding cakes, their delicate icing flowers mocking me. Those cakes were supposed to be my gift to him, my way of saying, I'm proud of you. Instead, they sat there, unfinished, like our bond. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I could still feel Nathan's tiny hand in mine, sticky with frosting from helping me in the bakery when he was just a boy. His giggles used to fill this place, back when it was just a corner kitchen in our old house. When did that little boy, who needed me for everything, become the man who was ashamed of me? Who saw his own mother as a liability? It all started 3 days ago. I was in my bedroom, holding up the sapphire dress I'd bought for Nathan's wedding. It wasn't extravagant, no way I'd risk stealing the spotlight, but it was elegant. The kind of dress that said I belonged, even if I didn't feel it. It cost more than I'd ever spent on myself in a year. But this was Nathan's day, my only child's wedding. I wanted to make him proud. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Nathan. Mom, we need to talk about tomorrow. My stomach sank. After months of planning, of pouring my savings into their perfect day. What could possibly need discussing now? I called him right away. The video connected, and there they were, Nathan and Abigail, sitting in their sleek Boston condo. All glass and chrome, the kind of place I'd always felt too clumsy to step into. Mom, Nathan started, his voice tight, like he was choosing every word carefully. Abigail's hand rested on his arm, her diamond ring glinting in the light, a ring I'd helped pay for. Though we never talked about that. What's wrong, sweetheart? I asked, though a part of me already knew. A mother's heart always knows when something's off. It's Abigail's family, Nathan said, glancing at her. They have certain expectations for tomorrow. Expectations. The word tasted bitter, like overbaked bread. Abigail leaned forward, her smile polished but cold, like the marble counters in her kitchen. Mrs. Ramsey, she said, you understand that a lot of important people will be there. My father's business partners, our friends from the club. I understand, I said softly, though I didn't. Not really. Nathan jumped in, his words rushed. So, we were thinking, maybe don't mention the bakery. And definitely don't talk about paying for anything. It might make Abigail's parents uncomfortable. The bakery, my bakery, the one I'd built from nothing after my husband, Tom, died, the one that fed us, clothed us, put Nathan through design school. The one that was footing the bill for their fairy tale wedding. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. And where will I sit? I asked, already dreading the answer. Abigail's smile didn't waver. We've arranged a lovely spot for you at table 15. Table 15. I'd seen the seating chart. It was tucked in the back, by the service entrance, far from the glittering tables reserved for Abigail's family and their important friends. Actually, Nathan added, not meeting my eyes, maybe it's best if you just come for the ceremony. The reception might be a bit much for you. A bit much for me? For the woman who'd worked 12-hour days, who'd burned her hands on hot ovens to give him everything. That woman might be overwhelmed by a party? I see, I said, my voice steady, though inside, something was breaking. You understand, right, Mom? Nathan said, it's just one day, an important day, one day, as if the 32 years I'd spent raising him, loving him, building a life for him, meant nothing. When the call ended, I sat on my bed, staring at that sapphire dress. It hung there, silent, like a promise already broken. How had I missed the signs? How had I let myself believe that Nathan was just busy, just trying to fit in with Abigail's world? I didn't know then that the worst was yet to come. That in just a few hours, my son, my baby boy, would do something that would shatter everything I thought we had. Something that would force me to make a choice I never imagined I'd have to make. After that call with Nathan and Abigail, I sat there in my bedroom, the sapphire dress still in my hands. Its fabric felt heavy, like it was carrying the weight of all the hopes I'd pinned on Nathan's wedding day. I kept replaying his words in my head. Just come for the ceremony. The reception might be a bit much for you. A bit much. I'd spent 32 years making sure nothing was too much for him. And now, I was too much for his world. It was 3 days ago. 72 hours before everything fell apart. That call wasn't the first sign. Though, looking back, there were so many red flags I'd ignored. Moments I brushed off with excuses like he's just caught up in love or he's trying to impress Abigail's family. But sitting there, alone in my apartment above the bakery, I started to see the pattern. Each memory was like a crumb on the counter. Small and easy to sweep away, until you realized the whole table was covered. It started months ago, when Nathan first brought Abigail to meet me. We didn't meet at the bakery or my home, just a neutral coffee shop in downtown Boston. I realized later it was deliberate. No flour-dusted aprons, no photos of Nathan as a kid on my walls. Just a clean, polished space where Abigail's designer heels wouldn't look out of place. She was stunning, in that effortless way money buys, perfect hair, perfect teeth, a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Mrs. Ramsey," she said, extending her hand like she was granting me an audience. "Nathan's told me so much about you." That was a lie. I could tell by the way her eyes flickered when I mentioned the bakery. "So, you own a bakery?" she asked, pausing just a beat too long. Like the word bakery was foreign. Something she had to translate. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice bright. "It's been a blessing for over 25 years. Kept us going after my husband passed. Put Nathan through school." Nathan jumped in, his cheeks flushing. "Mom's business is actually pretty successful. She's got contracts with local cafes. Does custom orders." He said it so fast, like he was trying to dress up my life to fit her world. I smiled, but it stung. Why did my work, our life, need defending? That coffee meeting was just the beginning. Over the next year, the slights piled up. There was the time Nathan asked me not to mention the bakery at a dinner with Abigail's parents. "Just say you're in the food industry." "Mom, keep it vague." I nodded, thinking he was just nervous. Then there was the dress shopping for the wedding. I'd assumed I'd be invited. Don't mothers of the groom get to sit on those little velvet couches, tearing up when their son's bride finds the dress? But Abigail went with her mother and sisters. And Nathan conveniently forgot to tell me until I saw the photos on social media. Champagne flutes, laughter, a family moment, without me. The calls from Nathan grew shorter. Too, always rushed, always crazy busy with wedding planning. I told myself it was normal. Weddings are stressful, but deep down, I felt it, the slow drift. The way he was pulling away. No, not pulling, pushing me out of his life. One polite excuse at a time. Then there were the financial requests. It started small, a few thousand for the engagement party at Abigail's family's country club. "It's only fair we contribute." "Mom," Nathan said, "they're hosting." I wrote the check, thinking it was for his happiness. But the numbers kept climbing. 50,000 for the venue deposit. 20,000 for Abigail's dress, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Nathan called it 10,000 for flowers, 5,000 for a wedding planner. Every time, he promised they'd pay me back after the wedding. I watched my savings, the nest egg I'd built from years of early mornings and late nights at the bakery, dwindle. I tried to talk to Nathan about it once, when he came by to pick up another check. "Sweetheart," I said, my voice shaking just a little. "This is getting to be more than I planned. I've given nearly 150,000 already." His face hardened, just for a second, before he softened it with a smile. "Mom, come on. This is my wedding. Abigail's parents spent twice this on her sisters. Are you saying you don't want me to have what they have?" I wasn't saying that. I never would. But his words cut deep, like a knife through soft dough. He wasn't just asking for money. He was weighing my love against it. And I kept writing the checks. Because what else does a mother do? Then, 2 days before the wedding, Another text came. This one from Abigail, not Nathan. Mrs. Ramsey, we've had some last-minute expenses. Could you transfer an extra $5,000 today? I stared at the message. My heart racing. $5,000 more. For what? I didn't ask. I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I told myself it was for Nathan's happiness. For his future. Looking back, I wonder how I didn't see it. The way Abigail's smile never reached her eyes. The way Nathan stopped looking at me like his mother and started looking at me like a means to an end. The way every conversation felt like a transaction. But the real wake-up call was coming. It wasn't just the table 15 nonsense or the ceremony-only request. It was something bigger, something I couldn't have imagined. Something that would break my heart wide open and force me to decide who I was going to be, not just for Nathan, but for myself. As I sat there in my apartment, staring at that sapphire dress, Nathan's words from the call kept echoing in my mind. Just come for the ceremony. The hurt was raw, like a burn from a hot oven tray. But it made me think back. Back to the years I'd given everything for him. Back to the woman I was before I became Mrs. Ramsey. The bakery lady. I was 35 when I lost my husband, Tom, to cancer. Nathan was just 3. A little boy with big brown eyes who clung to my apron while I tried to make sense of a world that felt like it had crumbled. I'd been accepted to art school before Nathan was born. I dreamed of painting, of filling canvases with color and light, of maybe one day seeing my work in a gallery. But life had other plans. When I got pregnant, I dropped out. Morning sickness and late-night feedings don't mix with easels and oil paints. Tom, bless his heart, held me as I cried over that lost dream. You'll go back when Nathan's older. He promised, kissing my forehead. We'll make it work. But then Tom got sick. Stage 4, they said, like it was a number that could sum up the end of our world. He was gone within a year. I was 35, a single mom, with a toddler who needed diapers, shoes he'd outgrow in months, and a future I had to build from scratch. There was no time for art school, no money for dreams, so I started baking. At first, it was just a few cakes for neighbors, made in our tiny kitchen while Nathan napped. But word spread, and soon I was renting a storefront, turning my grief into something sweet, something that could feed us. By the time Nathan was 5, I was running Ramsey's sweet shop out of a little corner in Boston. 12-hour days, sometimes 14. My hands were always dusted with flour. My back ached from bending over mixing bowls, and my fingers burned from icing hot pans. But every night, when I tucked Nathan into bed, it felt worth it. Mommy, why do your hands smell like sugar? He'd ask, his little nose wrinkling as he held my cracked fingers. Because I'm building something special for us, I'd say, kissing his forehead, so you can be anything you want when you grow up. Art school called once, years later, offering me a chance to re-enroll. I said no. Nathan needed new clothes for school. Then they called again when he was in high school. I said no again. He wanted to join the art club, and supplies weren't cheap. By the time he got into design school, the tuition bills were staggering. Even with scholarships, I poured every penny from the bakery into his education, into his dreams. Tom's life insurance, meant for my retirement, went to Nathan's therapy when he struggled after his dad's death. You're all I have, Mom. He'd sobbed at Tom's funeral, his teenage arms wrapped around me. And you're all I have. I whispered back, we'll get through this together. Every choice I made was for him. Every late night decorating cakes. Every missed art class. Every dream I tucked away in a drawer. I didn't mind, not really, because when I looked at Nathan, I saw a future brighter than anything I could have painted. I saw the boy who'd sit in the bakery after school, sketching designs on napkins, telling me he'd make the world beautiful one day. I believed in him. I believed in us. 3 years ago, Nathan met Abigail at a design conference. He was climbing the ladder at a fancy interior design firm, chasing a life bigger than the one we'd had. He brought her to meet me at a cafe, neutral ground. I realized later, not the bakery, with its sticky counters and flour-dusted floors. Abigail was polished, her smile as perfect as a wedding cake topper. So nice to meet you, Mrs. Ramsey, she said, her eyes already scanning the room, like she was looking for an exit. When I mentioned the bakery, she blinked, like I'd said something in another language. A bakery? That's charming. Nathan cut in, his voice quick. Mom's got a great business. She supplies half the cafes in Boston. It was true, but the way he said it, defensive, almost apologetic, made my heart sink. Was he ashamed of me? Of the life I'd built for him? I pushed the thought away. He was in love. He was just nervous. But that moment planted a seed of doubt. A tiny crack in the foundation of everything I thought we were. I didn't know then that it would grow. That it would lead to a betrayal I couldn't have imagined. That my son, the boy I'd given my whole life for, was about to show me just how far he'd drifted from the little boy who loved his sugar-scented mom. Sitting there in my apartment, the sapphire dress still folded over my arm, I couldn't shake Nathan's words. Just come for the ceremony. They cut deeper the more I thought about them, like a knife slicing through soft dough. But it wasn't just that call. It was the months, the years, of little moments that had piled up, each one chipping away at the bond I thought we had. I'd always told myself Nathan was just busy, just caught up in Abigail's world. But now, looking back, I saw it for what it was. He wasn't just drifting away. He was pushing me out, piece by piece, and I'd let it happen. It started creeping in slowly, like flour dust settling on every surface in the bakery. After that first coffee meeting with Abigail, the slights became harder to ignore. There was the dinner at her parents' house, a sprawling mansion in the suburbs with chandeliers and crystal wine glasses that made my hands feel too rough, too calloused. Nathan had pulled me aside before we went in. "Mom," he said, his voice low, "just say you're in the food industry. Don't mention the bakery. It's, you know, not their kind of thing." I nodded, swallowing the sting. I thought he was just nervous, wanting to fit in with Abigail's parents, who seemed to measure people by their bank accounts and last names. But it wasn't just that dinner. There was the engagement party at their country club, all ice sculptures and string quartets. I'd offered to bring my lemon tarts. Everyone loves those tarts. Right? Nathan's voice had that pleading tone I remembered from his teenage years. "Mom, they're having it catered, you know, professionally, as if the desserts I'd spent decades perfecting weren't good enough." I smiled and said, "Of course, sweetheart," but inside, it felt like a door closing. Then came the money. Oh, the money. It started with the engagement party. "Mom, it's only fair we chip in," Nathan said. "Abigail's parents are hosting, but it's $15,000 for our share." $15,000. I wrote the check, thinking it was a one-time thing, a way to support his happiness. But the requests kept coming, each one bigger than the last. $50,000 for the wedding venue deposit. "We'll pay you back, Mom, I promise." $20,000 for Abigail's dress, it's her dream dress. You know how it is. $10,000 for flowers, $5,000 for a planner. Another $15,000 for a band. Every time, Nathan's smile was a little tighter, his promises a little thinner. I watched my savings, built from years of early mornings and late nights at the bakery, drain away like batter from a cracked bowl. Tom's life insurance, the safety net I'd clung to for my retirement, was hemorrhaging into their wedding. I kept telling myself it was for Nathan, for his future. What was money compared to that? But every check I wrote felt like I was giving away a piece of myself. And they kept taking without a second thought. One evening, I tried to talk to him. He'd come by the bakery to pick up another check, something about upgraded lighting for the venue. I was tired, my hands still dusted with flour from a long day. "Nathan," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be, "this is getting to be too much. I've given you nearly $150,000. My savings are almost gone." His face shifted, surprise, then guilt, then something harder. "Mom, are you seriously complaining about helping with your only son's wedding?" His voice was sharp, like I'd betrayed him. "Do you know what Abigail's parents spent on her sister's wedding? $300,000. And here I am, begging for basic things. Basic things. $150,000 wedding was basic?" I felt my chest tighten. But I didn't push back. "I'm not complaining," I said quietly. I've given everything I have." He looked around my tiny apartment above the bakery, at the faded photos on the walls, the life I'd built. "Not everything," he said, his voice low. "Dad's insurance was more than this." That's when it hit me. He'd been counting my money in his head, tallying up what he thought he was owed. My son, my Nathan, saw me as a bank account. not a mother. I wrote the check anyway. Because that's what mothers do. Right? We keep giving. Even when it hurts. Even when it feels like we're losing ourselves. The slights kept coming, each one a little sharper. There was the time Abigail forgot to invite me to the bridal shower. It was just a small thing. Mom, Nathan said when I found out. You wouldn't have known anyone there. I know you, I wanted to say, but I didn't. Then there was the rehearsal dinner, which I learned about from a friend who'd seen the photos online. Wedding party only, Nathan explained, but I wasn't even invited as the mother of the groom. Each moment was small enough to explain away. He's busy, he's in love, he's trying to fit in. But together, they painted a picture I'd been too afraid to see. I was being erased from Nathan's life. Kept at arm's length like an embarrassing ant you can't quite cut off. The week before the wedding, I ran into Mrs. Carter, a regular at the bakery who'd known Nathan since he was a kid. You must be so excited. Catherine, she said, squeezing my arm. Your boy's getting married. I smiled and nodded, not mentioning that I hadn't been invited to half the events. That I was only allowed at the ceremony. That my role as mother of the groom felt like a formality. That night, I sat in the bakery after closing. The lights low, the air heavy with the scent of sugar. I looked at the photos on the wall, Nathan's first day of school. His high school art show. The day he got his acceptance letter to design school. I'd been there for every moment. Cheering the loudest. Sacrificing the most. When had I become someone to hide? Then came that text from Abigail. Mrs. Ramsey, we've had some last-minute expenses. Could you transfer an extra $5,000 today? I stared at it, my heart pounding. $5,000 more. For what? I didn't ask. I should have. But something about that message felt off. Like there was more to it than flowers or lighting. I didn't know it then. But the truth was about to come crashing down. A truth that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my son, and force me to make a choice that would change us both forever. The morning of Nathan's wedding was quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your heart. Heavy with unspoken truths. I sat at my kitchen table at 5 a.m., the Boston sky outside my window turning soft pink. Like the icing on a birthday cake I'd made for Nathan years ago. On the table in front of me were three things: my checkbook, my phone, and a photo of Nathan at 4. His face smudged with frosting. Grinning like the world was his to conquer. I'd been staring at that photo for an hour. Trying to find the boy I'd raised in the man who'd asked me to hide myself at his wedding. The night before, everything changed. It wasn't just the call. Or the table 15 nonsense. Or even the endless requests for money. It was Sophie, my best friend's daughter. The 17-year-old I loved like my own granddaughter. She'd come by the bakery unexpectedly. Her eyes wide with something she couldn't quite say. Aunt Catherine, she started, twisting her hands. I saw something I wasn't supposed to. My heart stopped. What is it, honey? I asked, setting down the piping bag I'd been holding. Sophie hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I was at Nathan's apartment, dropping off some decorations for the wedding. They didn't know I was there. I saw an email. It was sent to Nathan by mistake. From Abigail. She turned the screen toward me. And there it was, like a knife slicing through my chest. The email was short, clinical, like a business deal. Nathan, make sure your mom transfers the last payment. We'll need it for the condo deposit. Once the wedding's done, we won't have to deal with her as much. She doesn't fit with the investors. Investors, condo deposit. Not a word about flowers or lighting or anything wedding related. They were planning to use my money, my life savings, for a real estate deal. Something to cement their place in Abigail's high society world. And after that, I was disposable. A problem to be managed. A mother to be pushed aside. I read the email again. My hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Aunt Catherine, Sophie said, her voice fierce. You deserve so much better than this. Why do you let them treat you like this? Why, indeed? I'd spent decades giving everything to Nathan, my dreams, my savings, my heart, and this was what I was to him now. A means to an end. I didn't sleep that night. At my kitchen table, with the dawn breaking, I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. The numbers were stark, undeniable. $50,000 for the venue, $20,000 for Abigail's dress, $10,000 for flowers, $5,000 for the planner, $15,000 for the band. Another $50 for miscellaneous upgrades. $150,000. Gone. And that wasn't counting the loans I'd given Nathan over the years, $40,000 for business expenses. $20,000 for trips he swore they'd pay back. Nearly $200,000. All told, the price of my love. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Big day. Mom, thanks for everything. See you at the church. Ceremony only. Okay? Ceremony only. Like I was a guest who might overstay her welcome. I picked up the phone. My hands steady for the first time in days. I dialed the bank's 24-hour line. I need to stop a payment, I said, my voice clear, unshaken. Check number 6723. $150,000. The representative paused. That's a large amount. Mrs. Ramsey, may I ask why? I took a breath. The services it was meant to cover, they're no longer needed. It took 10 minutes to confirm. 10 minutes to undo years of manipulation. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a spark of strength. Like the old Catherine, the one who'd built a bakery from nothing, was waking up, but I wasn't done. I called my friend Laura, a lawyer who'd helped me after Tom died. Catherine, it's 5 in the morning, she said, her voice groggy. I know, I said, I need to set up an education trust for Sophie. Today, she heard something in my tone. I'll meet you at my office in an hour. By 6:30, I'd transferred what was left of my savings into an irrevocable trust for Sophie's college. She was the only one who'd seen me as a person, not a paycheck. She deserved it. My phone started buzzing as I drove to the church. Nathan. Then Abigail. Then numbers I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail. I knew what was coming. The church parking lot was filling up when I arrived. Guests in their finest streamed toward the entrance, their jewelry catching the morning sun. I sat in my car for a moment, the sapphire dress smooth against my skin. I'd earned the right to be here, paid for it in ways they'd never understand. Nathan met me at the church doors, his face pale, his tuxedo pristine. Mom, he hissed, pulling me aside. The venue called. The payment didn't go through. What did you do? I fastened my earrings, the ones Tom gave me for our 10th anniversary. I stopped it, I said calmly. What do you mean you stopped it? His voice rose, almost a shout. The wedding's in 2 hours. In the background, I heard Abigail's voice, sharp and venomous. I told you she'd pull something like this. I told you she was jealous. Jealous? Of what? Of losing my life savings? Of being hidden like a dirty secret? If you don't fix this right now, Nathan said, his voice low and cold, you're not welcome here. Do you hear me? I looked at him. My boy. His face twisted with anger. Then I guess I'm not welcome, I said quietly. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken truths. For the first time, I was the one to walk away. Abigail appeared, her white dress a vision of lace and fury. This is what people like you do, she spat. You ruin things because you can't stand to see us succeed. I almost laughed. People like me? I paid for your entire wedding. Abigail, every cent. Nathan's mask slipped completely. You think I don't know you've got Dad's insurance money? You've been sitting on it while I've had to beg. There it was, the truth, ugly and raw. You were never going to pay me back. Were you? I asked, though I knew the answer. It's family money, he snapped. I'm your son. I'm entitled to it. Yes, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. You're my son, which is why I gave you everything. But it was never enough. Was it? Guests were staring now, their whispers buzzing like flies. If you loved me, Nathan said, you'd want me to be happy. I do, I said, but not at the cost of my dignity. I turned and walked away, my head high, the sapphire dress catching the light. I heard Abigail's mother's voice behind me, sharp and cruel. Good riddance to the trash. Trash. 30 years of baking other people's celebrations. And I was trash, but I was free trash. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Driving away from that church, leaving behind the chaos of Nathan's wedding, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not peace, not yet, but a lightness, like I'd set down a heavy tray of cakes I'd been carrying for far too long. The Boston skyline stretched out before me, the harbor glinting in the morning light, and for the first time in decades, I wondered what it might feel like to live for myself. Not as Nathan's mother, not as the bakery lady, but as Catherine, just Catherine. The days after the wedding were strange. Quiet. I closed the bakery for a week. Something I hadn't done in years. I needed space to breathe. To think. The calls kept coming, Nathan, Abigail, the venue, the caterer, all panicking about the cancelled payment. I let them go to voicemail. Their voices, sharp and demanding, felt like echoes from a life I was done with. I wasn't that woman anymore. The one who'd say yes to keep the peace. Who'd give everything to avoid conflict. One afternoon, Sophie came by, her arms full of grocery bags. "Aunt Catherine," she said, her 17-year-old face fierce with loyalty. "I brought dinner, and ice cream, just in case." I smiled. The first real smile in days. "I don't think I need the ice cream," I said, surprising myself, "but I'll take the company." We cooked together, Sophie chattering about school and her dreams of becoming a teacher. She didn't mention the wedding, but I could feel her watching me, checking if I was okay. "You're different," she said finally, as we sat down to eat. "Stronger," I laughed, a little shaky. "I don't know about stronger, but I'm starting to remember who I am." That was the beginning. A week later, I made a decision that shocked everyone, including myself. I put the bakery up for sale. It had been my life for nearly 30 years. The place where I'd raised Nathan. Where I'd poured my grief and love into every cake. But it was also a weight, tying me to a past I needed to let go of. A young couple bought it, full of dreams like I'd been when I started. I kept a small percentage for income, but I let them take the reins. "It's time," I told my manager, Rosa, who hugged me and said, "You've earned this, Catherine, more than anyone." With the sale, I moved to a small condo by the Boston Harbor. It was nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen, a balcony overlooking the water. But it was mine. For the first time, I decorated for me, not for Nathan or anyone else. I hung colorful curtains, bought a bright yellow chair just because it made me smile. And then, I did something I hadn't done since I was a girl. I signed up for a watercolor painting class at the community center. The first class was a disaster. My hands, so used to piping icing, fumbled with the brushes. My paintings looked like a child's, all smudges and uneven lines. But I kept going. Every stroke, every splash of color, felt like a piece of me coming back to life. I'd always thought art was something I'd given up for Nathan, a dream lost to motherhood. But there, in that sunlit studio, I realized it wasn't too late. I was 65, and I was painting. Sophie was my biggest cheerleader. "Aunt Catherine, you're an artist," she'd say, grinning at my messy canvases. She'd come over to the condo, sprawl on my couch, and tell me about her college applications. One night, she said, "You should go to Paris. You always talked about it when I was a kid." Paris, the city I'd dreamed of as a young art student. Before life got in the way. "At my age?" I asked, half laughing. "Especially at your age," she shot back. "What else are you going to do? Wait for Nathan to apologize?" She was right. 6 months after the wedding, I booked a trip to Paris. Alone, I walked along the Seine, visited tiny art galleries, sipped coffee in cafes where I didn't know a soul. I sent postcards to Sophie, to Rosa, to the friends I'd neglected for years. Not to Nathan. That door was still closed, locked tight with the pain of his betrayal. Back in Boston, I started volunteering at a local shelter, teaching kids how to bake. Their faces lit up when they piped their first cupcake. And I felt it, a purpose that wasn't tied to Nathan or the bakery, but to me, to the woman I was becoming. My condo walls filled with watercolors, amateur but honest. My days filled with walks by the harbor, with books I'd always meant to read, with laughter shared with new friends from painting class. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the water gold, Sophie came by. "You look free," she said, handing me a cup of tea. Free, that was the word. I'd spent decades tethered to Nathan's needs, to the bakery, to a life of giving. Now, I was learning what it meant to live for myself. "I'm not just Nathan's mom anymore," I told her. "I'm Catherine, an artist, a teacher, a woman with a life that's mine." But even as I said it, I wondered about Nathan. Did he ever think about that day at the church? Did he regret the way he'd treated me? I pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the life I was building. But the past has a way of creeping back in. A year after the wedding, A letter arrived, one that would test everything I'd learned about myself. A letter that would force me to decide whether love could be rebuilt, or if some bridges, once burned, were better left in ashes. 2 years after that awful day at the church, I was sitting on my balcony, watching the Boston Harbor glow under a late summer sunset. My condo was filled with watercolors, my own, imperfect but mine, and the air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. I'd built a life that felt like my own, one where I wasn't just Nathan's mom or the bakery lady. I was Catherine, an artist, a volunteer, a woman who'd learned to say no. But even in that new life, there was a quiet ache, a space where Nathan used to be. I wondered if he ever thought about me, if he regretted that morning when he'd called me a liability. Then, one evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Nathan standing there, looking older than his 32 years. His shoulders were slumped, his designer clothes replaced by a simple button-down, slightly wrinkled. Behind him was a small boy, maybe 4, with Nathan's brown eyes and a shy smile. "Mom," Nathan said, his voice soft, almost broken. "This is Lucas. Can we come in?" I could have said no. Part of me wanted to. The part that still felt the sting of his words at the church. But I stepped aside, letting them into my condo, a space that had never known their betrayal. "This is nice," Nathan said, looking around at the bright curtains, the paintings on the walls. "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice even. Lucas clung to his father's leg, peeking at me with curious eyes. "Lucas," Nathan said, kneeling to his son's level. "This is your grandma, Catherine." The boy studied me, then pointed at a watercolor of the harbor. "Did you make that?" he asked. I nodded, surprised by the warmth his question sparked. "I did. Want to see more?" He nodded, and I showed him a small canvas, one with messy blues and greens. "It's like the ocean," he said, his face lighting up. For a moment, I saw Nathan in him, the boy who'd once loved my bakery sketches. Nathan sat on the couch, awkward, like he didn't know where to start. "Mom," he said finally, "I've been in therapy. I see what I did to you. I was wrong, so wrong." His voice cracked, and I saw something in his eyes, regret. Maybe, or something close to it. I stayed quiet, waiting. I'd learned that silence could say more than words. "Abigail and we're struggling," he said. "Her parents cut us off after the wedding. I lost my job at the firm. Turns out her dad had more pull than I thought. I'm at a smaller company now, barely making ends meet." He paused, looking at Lucas, who was tracing the lines of my painting with his finger. "Being a dad, it's changed me. It's made me see what you gave me, and what I threw away." I sipped my tea, letting his words settle. "What do you want, Nathan?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. He flinched, like he'd expected me to soften. "I just want to make things right," he said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I looked at Lucas, his small hands clutching a paintbrush I'd given him. My heart ached to hold him, to be his grandma, but I'd learned something in these 2 years. Love without boundaries wasn't love, it was surrender. "Nathan," I said, "if we do this, it's on my terms. No more manipulation, no more money, no more treating me like I'm less than you. If you want to be in my life, you respect me, not just as your mother, but as a person." He nodded, his eyes downcast. "I understand. I want to try." I didn't trust him fully, not yet. Trust is earned, not given, and he'd broken mine too deeply for quick fixes. But I agreed to meet again. "Let's start with coffee," I said, one step at a time. We met at a cafe, the same one where he'd first introduced me to Abigail. Full circle in a way. Nathan was different, quieter, less polished. He talked about his life now, his small apartment, his new job, the challenges of co-parenting Lucas after Abigail moved to a bigger firm across town. He didn't ask for anything, which was new. I listened, cautious but curious, watching for signs of the old Nathan, the one who saw me as a means to an end. A few months later, I met Lucas again, this time at a park. He ran to me, holding a drawing he'd made, a wobbly picture of a boat on the harbor. "For you, Grandma," he said, and my heart melted, just a little. I pushed him on the swings, watched him climb the slide, and felt something I hadn't in years, joy, pure and untainted by obligation. Nathan stayed back, giving us space, And I saw it in his eyes, he was trying. Not for money, not for status, but for us. Our coffee meetings became monthly, then weekly. Slowly, we built something new, not the blind devotion of before, but a relationship grounded in respect. One day, Nathan brought up the money. "Mom, I want to pay you back," he said. "Not all at once, I can't, but in small amounts. It's important to me." I studied his face, looking for the old entitlement. I didn't see it. "We'll talk about it," I said, "but not to me. To Sophie's education fund. She's the one who deserves it." He nodded, relief softening his features. "Thank you, that's perfect." We sat in silence for a moment. The kind that doesn't need filling. I wasn't ready to forgive him completely. Some scars take years to heal, but I was willing to try. To build something new, not on the ashes of the past, but on the ground we were clearing together. But the real test was still to come. A test of whether Nathan had truly changed. And whether I could open my heart again without losing myself. A test that would come in the form of a little boy named Lucas, and a question that would change everything. 5 years have passed since that day at the church. The day I walked away from Nathan's wedding with my head held high. I'm 70 now, sitting on my balcony overlooking the Boston Harbor. The water shimmering like one of my watercolors. My condo is alive with color, paintings on the walls, bright cushions on the couch. A life I built for myself. I'm not just Nathan's mom anymore. Or the woman who baked other people's celebrations. I'm Catherine Ramsey, artist, volunteer, grandmother, and, most importantly, a woman who's learned to live for herself. Life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? After those first cautious coffee meetings with Nathan, our relationship grew, slowly, like a seedling finding its way through cracked pavement. He kept his promise to contribute to Sophie's education fund, sending small payments every month. A gesture that meant more than the money itself. It was proof he was trying, not just to make amends, but to be the man I'd raised him to be. We don't talk about the wedding, or the years of manipulation. Some things are better left in the past. But we talk about Lucas. About his drawings. About the little moments that make a family. Lucas is my joy. He's 9 now, with Nathan's brown eyes and a laugh that lights up my world. We paint together on weekends. His small hands smudging colors across the canvas. His chatter filling my condo with life. "Grandma," he said once, holding up a picture of a boat. "This is for you to keep forever." I framed it, right next to my first watercolor. A reminder that love can be simple, honest, pure. Sophie's in college now, studying to be a teacher. Just as she dreamed, she calls me every week. Her voice bright with stories of classes and new friends. "You changed my life, Aunt Catherine," she told me once. "That trust fund, it's not just money. It's you believing in me." I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. "You believed in me first," I said, and she did. She saw me when I couldn't see myself. Last month, I got a letter from Abigail's mother. It was short, formal, but unexpected. "Mrs. Ramsey, I owe you an apology. We put too much pressure on Abigail and Nathan, and you paid the price. I'm sorry." I read it twice, then tucked it away. It didn't erase the hurt, but it closed a chapter. Abigail and Nathan are separated now, living separate lives, but Lucas binds them, and in a way, binds me to them too. I don't hold grudges. Life's too short for that. These days, my life is full. I teach baking classes at the shelter. Watching kids' faces light up as they frost their first cupcakes. I paint. My watercolors getting better with every brushstroke. I've been back to Paris twice. Once with Sophie, who dragged me to every art gallery she could find. I laugh more, worry less, live more. My condo is my sanctuary, filled with sunlight and the sound of the harbor. Looking back, I see it all so clearly. I gave Nathan everything, but I gave myself away in the process. That day at the church, when I walked away, I wasn't just leaving a wedding. I was choosing myself, and that choice, as painful as it was, gave me back my life. Love, I've learned, isn't a blank check. It's a two-way street, built on respect, not sacrifice. You can love someone with all your heart, but you don't have to lose yourself to prove it. So here's my question for you. Listening to my story, have you ever had to choose between family and your own dignity? Between love and self-respect? What did you do? Share it with me in the comments. Tell me where you're from. Your stories matter, just like mine. And if you're carrying a weight like I was, let me tell you this, it's never too late to start again. At 65, at 70, at any age, you can pick up the brush and paint your own life. Bright and bold and true. Love is the most beautiful gift we can give, but it should never come at the cost of our own worth. True love lifts everyone up, not just one side. And no matter how many years you've lived, you have the power to rewrite your story, to choose yourself, and to find joy in the life you create.